I'm super excited to be here today because this is going to be a fascinating topic. We're going to be talking about female narcissists, but also more than female narcissists, we're going to also be talking about the unique dynamics of a female abuser and how we tend to not spend enough time talking about what happens to all of us, not just men, but men and women when they get into a toxic relationship with a woman. We have this bias that the majority of narcissists are men. But interestingly enough, when I did more research into this topic, I found out that there has been a 50% rise in the number of women who are toxic, the number of women who are narcissists in the last 10 years. So the more recent numbers, the more recent stats coming out about toxicity in women, narcissism in women, it puts women narcissists rates of them almost at the same rates of the male narcissists. They're running almost 50-50%. So today let's kind of dig into what is a female narcissist look like? Why aren't we talking about them more? What happens when we get into a relationship with them, whether they're our sister or our friend, maybe they're our mother, maybe they're our partner. So let's talk about all these dynamics that we're not spending much time on. And I would even love to know what you think is the theory why we're not. Oh, and I realized I did the same thing as I did last week. You probably all can hear me, but you'll hear me better now. Sorry about that. But let's talk about why women are being underreported as abusive. Now, I have some working theories that I'd like to throw out to you all, and I also have some ideas about how women present as abusive. The things that probably you're seeing in a relationship that indicates toxicity, but maybe let's talk about why are we not reporting that better? So I'm so thrilled that you're here. In fact, I see I have somebody new here on YouTube with me today. I'm right now streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, and also TikTok. So I'm so thrilled that you're all here with me. So Kamish, I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I love my mainstays. I see Kate and Marielle. I love the fact seeing people who come back every week because everybody knows I try to go live as close to 4 o'clock as possible, but technology doesn't always cooperate. It can be really challenging. So how many of you think that oh, and Henderson, you're not taking over the space because we're talking about men's and women's experience of female narcissists. So maybe you have had experience with a female narcissist. Maybe you're in a relationship with one right now, or maybe you're trying to heal from a relationship with a female narcissist and you've been wondering why no one's talking about it. Why we spend so much time talking about mothers, but really not talking about partners or friends or coworkers or our neighbor, the woman who's on the PTA. Maybe it's the woman who's running the daycare who's just, makes life miserable for you. I remember I started a professional relationship this last year with somebody, and I started feeling all the same feelings I had in that romantic relationship. I felt shut down. My opinions were being overrun. Things were being spun in a different way. There was a lot of this poor me, like all the things I'm doing for you, this a lot of guilt leveraging, guilt tripping. And I realized that I had met a female narcissist, that this person I was considering hiring to be part of my team was toxic as hell. And it's amazing how, all this like tension that I was feeling was coming right back, and it wasn't even a romantic relationship. So this can happen in any kind of setting. It can happen at work. Years ago, my late sister worked with a boss, a supervisor, who really made it hard for her. It made her a lot sicker, undermined her sense of confidence because she'd had years of really great work experience with Fortune 500 companies. She got into this company and the picking at her, the isolating her from others, giving her extra tasks that are really hard, not making accommodations for her. She had multiple sclerosis and they weren't making appropriate accommodations for her. All of that. They actually denied her the ability to see her neurologist. She had an appointment and he said no, she couldn't leave the premises for the appointment. And she was just like coming, she was breaking her down. That's what was happening. It was literally breaking her down. So it's amazing. that's a fascinating point Hendershot just made. He said that everyone thinks women are incompetent, even at abuse. I mean, that's like, wow. Yeah, I do agree, Kate. It was ADA violations, and she did start seeing an attorney, but it so undermined her, and she wasn't getting the kind of, they couldn't prove that it hurt her. I mean, it was just, there was a lot to it. She's now deceased, so actually this point doesn't really make a difference, but it is, it was, I found it horrifying what was happening to her. Yeah, so Kim is asking, do I think there's a taboo talking about abuse in some way to due to society? I think that's a really great question. I think that there's a few things that make it complicated for female narcissists, why we overlook them. One is I think that men aren't educated about the fact that toxicity and danger isn't always physical danger. I mean, I think men tend to think about how do they provide for their homes? How do they stop, invasions or assault on your personhood? How do they stop that? How do they protect their families and children from that? But I think that there's not discussions of what it can look like emotionally, psychologically. So we don't tend to really prepare them for that. We don't even teach them how to talk about relationship dynamics or emotions. It's interesting because right now I'm conducting a survey of men's needs, top needs. And if you're a man who's here and is interested, I'm going to post a link to that in the description of both of these on TikTok. I'm sorry, it won't be on TikTok, but it will be on YouTube and Facebook, how you can take that survey. And I will put it in my links. It's not in my links right now listed in the links in bio, but I will put it in a link, and it's a male mental health survey, or I'm going to say male narcissistic abuse survey. Like, how can I best serve you? What I'm finding, we already had like 20 some men. I mean, I put the call out last night on my e-blast, and immediately I got the highest click rate I've ever gotten of men commenting, and they were saying, I don't have closure. I don't know what for sure happened. I feel like I can't protect myself around boundaries. And interestingly enough, a lot of them had sought help. I was surprised by that. They had a checklist of what services have you used. And I was surprised by the number of them have sought counseling. They have sought out expert advice, gotten a lot of information, but they're still struggling to feel better. So I think there's a big problem, but it's not just a problem with men. I don't want to focus on men who have been victimized, but I also want to talk about the women who've been victimized too. Yeah, and here's another really great question. It just came in. How do you know when it's abuse and you're not just angry at their behavior? Yeah, that's fascinating. Wow, I think we can be both. I think it's a both and question. I think abuse is anything that diminishes you, minimizes you, invalidates you, or an attempt to control you. So if you're feeling like you can't show up authentically as yourself, you're feeling smaller, it doesn't feel safe anymore for you to be you, I think that you're in a tough situation, and to me that's erring in the direction of abuse. Kamish asked, can I answer how to tell the difference between autistic spectrum disorder and narcissistic personality disorder apart? It comes back to the same kind of question of when am I just irritated and when is there really something more going on? It comes back in the sense of it's about intention. I'm on the autistic spectrum. All of my sons are too, so I have a lot of experience living with men who are autistic. I also struggle. I also have autism, and so yes, I understand how it presents, and I even understand a little bit how other people might experience me. And I think, yes, empathy is a problem for a lot of people who have autism. And they also have a lot of problems with kind of being literal, which can look like self-absorbed, because we had an incident last night. My son ordered something from me that needed to be kept cold. And I said, put it in the refrigerator, thinking of your refrigerator as a whole. Like the whole piece of furniture is the refrigerator. He heard, put it in the refrigerator, not the freezer. So it needed to be kept frozen, but he put it in the refrigerator because he heard refrigerator, not freezer, even though he didn't understand I meant the whole unit, the refrigerator that's in the kitchen. So he put it in the refrigerator part. And that could feel like, like not being kind, like he's not listening to me, like I don't matter. But I realized what it was his literalness. He heard me specifically saying refrigerator versus freezer. He didn't mean to be hurtful. So it really comes back to intentionality. Hey, Esha, I'm so good to see you today. I'm glad you're here joining the live. Yeah, so it comes back to intentionality. Same with something is frustrating. It might be with your friend, you might be frustrated because they didn't do something you asked or they're not available in the way that you want, but they're not trying to be hurtful. But it would be different if they turn around and then guilt trip you. Like, you always make it like, or even gaslight you. You always make it about you. And why are you upset? It's not that big of a deal. You have to sort of see the intentionality of everything. So, yeah, let me stop and introduce myself to everybody who's new to me, who's not familiar. I am Dr. Kerry McAvoy. Please call me Dr. Kerry. I have had 20 years of counseling experience. I'm a retired psychologist these days. I primarily give support and education and increase awareness of narcissistic abuse and relationship issues. I have a few benefits. One is that I have a toxic-free relationship club and community. And those are for people who are looking for support, like you're feeling like you're alone and you don't have anybody that you can turn to. You're not getting really good, help with your issues. You want to kind of break that isolation. Maybe you're even struggling with your feelings, processing your feelings. And I highly recommend you consider at least the community level, which is the support level, the community, the kind of the 24/7 support from the online community and direct access to me. But then if you're looking for, take it to a higher level, and that would include like 4 hours of group coaching. We meet every week right after this as a group and talk through problems. It's available to anyone who's at the club level. We also have a book club. Right now we're working through Lindsay Gibson's book called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It's amazing. We just finished Gavin DeBecker's The Gift of Fear. And you also, of course, get access to my webinars and my courses and books and all sorts of stuff. So if you're looking for support, you feel like you're really alone, you need help with the healing, please consider Toxic Free Relationship Club. So yeah, let me, before I take more questions, I want to tell you a little bit more information about the differences between a female narcissist and a narcissist. And for those of you who are on TikTok, can you do me a favor and hit the like, just tap your screen and like this. I see some of you sharing this. I appreciate this. Please, because we're going to get into the specifics of how female narcissists present as different from a male narcissist. So it really helps because I had really great numbers for a few minutes and then I lost it. And already you guys gave me 400, 500 likes within seconds. Thank you so much. Power of the group. I appreciate that. So let's get into what a female narcissist looks like. She is going to present with all the same symptoms as a male narcissist, except it's going to look different. Like same but different. Sorry about that. It's the same with covert versus the grandiose narcissist. They're same process. That's what I mean. Same process. Same problem with intimacy. Same problem with empathy. Same problem with self-absorption. Same problem with entitlement, but it presents very differently. The grandiose narcissist that we're most familiar with is sort of the life of the party. It's the braggart. It's the person who thinks they're all that and more. They just sort of take center stage and fill everything up. The covert is a similar process, but they're focusing on, oh, I'm the biggest loser in the room. I'm the one things never go right for. And they seek, instead of admiration, they're seeking sympathy. The female narcissist is different in that she is more manipulative. She kind of errs in the direction of more of the covert narcissist than the grandiose narcissist. So, but she flies under the radar because here's the problem. How we have normalized feminine behavior, we have accidentally think of women in a certain way that causes us to miss their toxic behavior because we say all women do that. Well, really, actually, not all women do that. Toxic women do that, but not all women do that. Or because we focus on more of like their gold digging, but we miss the fact that maybe they're guilt tripping. So we focus on the wrong details and miss the more pertinent ones that are going to do us more damage. And I'm not saying gold digging is okay, but when you have someone who's going to guilt trip you, who's going to leverage you by triangulating other people like, well, my friends say you should do it, leveraging you like that, or whenever you don't come through the way that she wants, she starts to whine and then say that you don't ever support her and that you just don't know how to come through. All this kind of excessive manipulate, or even passive aggressive stuff. Like you don't show up the way she wants, then she just shuts down and withdraws and acts like you're a nobody, and you have to work your way back out of the doghouse with her again. or she compares you to past relationships. So you hear how you don't measure up, or they're better than you. And you just feel kind of emasculated, or you just feel, as a woman, as a friend, you feel less than special. You don't feel important. You always feel like you're on this tender hook of this person going to withdraw their support. And they're just selfish. They're very excessively preoccupied with their needs. They don't really show up for yours. They keep track of yours. Like, it's almost like a competition. You may even have them, whenever you have a problem, they up you, like they one up you. Like, you think that's bad. Well, you should have had this happen to you. I had a girlfriend that was very narcissistic. Whenever I brought up an illness, she had a very serious medical problem, but she would up the ante and tell me a worse story. So it's like, you just stop competing. In fact, you're thinking, I'm not trying to compete, but it feels like you are. So you just give up because it's useless. And they do a lot of gaslighting too. And here's the thing about gaslighting. Gaslighting is, we misunderstand it and think that anybody who's lying is gaslighting. Okay, so all gaslighting involves a lie, but not all lies involve gaslighting. So what's the difference? Gaslighting is when it's a relationship built on trust, that you then express something that then gets twisted or denied and deceived. There's a denial or rejection of it. Your reality is then told that it's wrong, and then you're made out to be something problematic about you because you had that issue. So let me give you, for instance, say, for example, your partner didn't come home from after work. They said they're working late, and for whatever reason, you happen to be near their workplace and you stop by to see if they're there, and their car wasn't in the parking lot. So they come home and they say, hey, where were you? Because your car wasn't in the parking lot, I stopped by. And they'd say, I was at work. I don't know how you could have missed that because my car was there. And by the way, why were you stopping by? And then now you feel like you're on the defense. Like, well, because I was in the area and I thought I might say hi because I know it was a long day for you and I just wanted to encourage you. Well, you know what? I've seen this before with you, and I think you're really paranoid. You're getting to be like your mom. You see how they're twisting it? It's now not like, why is their car not in the parking lot? Which, by the way, the car wasn't in the parking lot. They're distracting you from that fact, but they're now twisting it, denying your reality. You saw that the parking lot was empty, but you're now feeling like, maybe I didn't, maybe I missed it, maybe their car was sitting there. And so now you're starting to question yourself, and it starts to make you have a lot of self-doubt. And then they turn around and they make you the problem. Like, I've seen this before with you. Do you think maybe your depression's making you not see things correctly? Or maybe you're, you get really anxious. You have an anxious attachment. And I think you're starting to work that out with me. And I'm not really comfortable about that. So they get really weird about all of this, and they gaslight you, making it feel like you can't walk away regretting that you ever brought it up, questioning whether or not you'd gotten it right, and now feeling like you're the problem. That's what gaslighting is like. No, but notice there's a lie. The lie was this person's car was not in the parking lot, but it got completely pushed us across, and then ended up focusing instead on why you had a question. So gaslighting is a hallmark of narcissistic abuse. It just is a hallmark of it. All relationships with a narcissist is going to involve gaslighting because it's a great way for them to avoid responsibility and accountability. So yeah, female narcissists will do it, but it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be focusing on more on the piece of the, I'm sorry, somebody just messaged me, and it's so distracting. Like, this is a person who watches me a lot. Like, where are you? It's because I'm not on Instagram today. I find Instagram really hard to set up, and anyway, you guys don't care why I'm not on Instagram. But anyway, but yeah, gaslighting. So the female narcissist will use it, but it will be more tapping into the relationship, more craziness around the relationship. So the male narcissist is going to be more about power and control, just more threatening, more ultimatums probably. I was in a narcissistically abusive with a man, and I've also been in a narcissistic abusive relationship with women. Men tend to sort of, this is the way it's going to be. Their reality is the truth. They tend to be more like judge and jury, like, your issue is drama. You're making up drama. Or mine loves to say to me, you're making a storm in a teacup. It's a storm in a teacup, dismissing me. Women tend to be more like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. where this is the cruelest thing you've ever done. You're leaving me now. I mean, they tend to do all this more manipulativeness around the issues instead of addressing the issues directly. So it's subtler, it's more passive aggressive, and it's more passive. Men tend to be more grandiose, they tend to be more domineering, and they tend to be a bit more aggressive in their control. But both can do coercive control, and both can create quite a lot of ambient abuse. And it makes you, as the person experiencing it, walking away, feeling like you're the person that's got the problem, that you created the problem because you brought the issue up. And that's a hallmark of narcissistic abuse. It begins, you start to doubt yourself. So I saw somebody got a little intense here for a second. I don't always watch the feed, but this is somebody popped in asking what my degree was in. My degree is in clinical psychology. I'm a retired psychologist. These days I don't counsel, but I am a retired psychologist. So yeah. So questions for me. Oh, yeah, Commissioner says 100%. You need to think better of me. It's my fault for bringing up the problems. Absolutely. Yeah, they'll flip it on you, make you the issue. So what are you guys struggling with when it comes to narcissistically abusive relationships? In particular, you don't have to keep it exclusive to women, but are there issues you're struggling with women? And I'd love to know why you think we're not talking more about women as abusers. I have some theories about it. One of my theories is that, okay, way back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a big study that kind of rocked the mental health realm. I thought it was a fascinating study. It was a simple study too, and they did it with college students. So you can say, well, it was college students, but still I think it revealed something that's deeply problematic in our culture. It was a questionnaire, and it had a range of descriptors like assertive, strong, confident, emotional, moody, words like that. And then they asked you to check the ones that best describe a healthy man, and then ones that best describe a healthy woman, and then ones that best describe a patient seeking mental health services. What they found was the ones that correlated, men were described with strong terms, strong descriptors, assertive, bold, confident, things like that. Women, however, were described with the same descriptors as a mental patient: moody, unpredictable, weak, things like that. Our problem is if we see women as sort of hysterical, dramatic, exaggerating things, we're going to then assume that when we see it in a toxic woman, that she's just behaving like a woman, not realizing that she's actually toxic. We have to get to a place where we see women as healthy, with healthy descriptors, to be able to separate healthy women from unhealthy women. And our problem is we don't. We tend to sort of lump women together, and you can hear it. Just listen to the conversations used about in men's circles, maybe when they on podcasts. And I know podcast bros don't speak for everybody, but if you start to listen to listen to how some circles talk about women, it makes sense why we're not seeing problematic women. If we think like that, then we're not going to see the women we should be avoiding. So that's one of my theories, but I'd love to hear what your theories are on this. So, hey, Nita, so good. First of all, apologies if I'm not saying your name right, but I so appreciate you being on my platform and commenting on my stuff. It means a lot to me. Tips on building supports that have my back after narcissistic abuse. That is a tough problem for a lot of survivors. I'm going to jump over, and I want to follow up on the questions that some of you are answering my question. Many women today, I believe, are dealing with a narc society, and they are more jealous and insecure. That's interesting. How do you get a narc to get help when they don't believe they need mental help? You're not going to, because they don't see the problem as themselves. They see the problem as the relationship. They'll tell you, I was fine until you came into my life. You are the problem. That's because narcissism is a disorder. It's not a mental condition. You're like, what? I thought it was a mental health condition. No, it's actually not. Mental health conditions are things that we feel are upsetting, they're disturbing. So if you have a case of depression or you're struggling with anxiety, you feel sick, like something's wrong. You want it to go away. The problem with narcissism is that it's like telling somebody who's autistic or have ADHD to stop doing whatever that is, because they'll say, well, what do you mean? I've always been like this. I don't know how other people see the world. This is the way I've always addressed the world. So it's just part of their identity, part of the wiring of their personality. So narcissists, when they have a problem, because they do have relationship problems, they don't view it as coming from them. They view it as you having an issue with the way they are relating to. It's your issue. You brought the issue in. Even though you know, and I know, that when you look at all the relationships in the world, that what they're doing is not healthy. It's very dysfunctional. It's very, cheating and lying and deceiving and gaslighting and intimidating. That's what's healthy about that. None of that's healthy. But they would say, well, I've had to do that. It's the only way that I can get ahead. They'll justify their behavior. So you're not going to get them to see it, unless the only times I treated narcissists as a psychologist. They came into my office. It was probably one of the biggest personality disorder groups I saw. I don't know. I seem to attract them as a therapist too, which was fine because it didn't go wrong in the office. It's way easier to be a therapist with a narcissist than it is to have a relationship with a narcissist. But anyway, one of the things I saw that drove them into treatment was they were losing something they felt they couldn't live without. Like some of them were going to lose their job, or they had gotten a really bad performance review, or some of them maybe were afraid of losing their kids in a certain way, and the fear of that drove them in, and then they sought help. But they still had a hard time seeing them as the root of the problems. They tend to, in therapy, externalize. That relationship's the problem, or that person's behavior is the problem, or if my boss was just be different, or if the environment was more supportive, or whatever. They don't see that the way in which they're relating, maybe their way that they're cutting corners, or the way that they're like scrimping on the hours or deceiving, or maybe even the way that they're kind of like prioritizing their needs over other people's needs. They don't see that as the problem. It comes back to what you're going to do about the fact that you have a partner who's not going to get help. Really, that's unfortunately the hard truth, is that this person's not going to own that. All they're going to do is, and you already know because you've tried this, they're going to run around the circle and make it your issue. I'll never forget, this was after I'd been hoovered back into the relationship with my ex, that I share about it in my book, Love You More. So if you haven't read Love You More, highly recommend it. If you want to know it can happen to anybody and how it happens to anybody, check out Love You More. It's in TikTok shop and it's available for purchase. And when you order it from me, you get a autographed copy. So I actually sign every book. And this book is not simple, but I sign every book so that you have a copy specifically for me. So, but he said, so here I am, I've been hoovered back. I know his girlfriend's been flew in, during the break that we had during the marriage. We were still married, but we had a break, but he flew his girlfriend. And he said to me in a car ride, well, we both know that cheating's wrong and it's really hurtful. And my girlfriend said she'd never do it to anybody, which I'm thinking, what? I think she's been cheating on your partners for years. You and her have been a thing for years. And I said that's hogwash. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that you're saying this. And he looked at me and he said, you're going to have to decide whether or not you can live with a sex addict or not. So he made his series of betrayals, his propensity to not be monogamous and to be a liar, he flipped it and made it my issue, that I would have to decide if I could live with a sex addict or not, which even that's how he's interpreting his behavior. It wasn't that he had an integrity problem or he had a problem with honesty, or his problem was he had an addiction and I had to decide if I could live with it or not. So that's what they do. I have a feeling that's what your partner has done, that this partner has flipped it and made all the things going wrong in your relationship your problem, not their problem. So it comes back to, if any of you are in a relationship and you're like, I want to change my partner, unfortunately, thank you so much for that gift. I'm going to unfortunately break hard news to you. You're not changing them. You can't convince them to change. They have no reason to want to change because it works for them. It's not working for you, but it works for them. Think about it. They have you stabilizing their life. They have you holding the home fort down. They have you showing up emotionally, trying to make it work. They have you shutting down your emotions and sacrificing your wants and needs in order to make it go as well as it does. I mean, who frankly would not want that? I have never had that. Nobody's ever done that for me. But isn't it amazing how you and I get into these relationships and we're invested enough? And that's something we could talk about. Why do we get so invested? And what happens with us? You know, and part of it is that we're broken down. Our identity is broken down. We are indoctrinated. I actually heard Dr. Ramani say that in a training. We're indoctrinated in these relationships. So part of it is that. But part of it, for some of us, it's familiar. That a lot of our relationships, and even our childhood relationships, were this kind of a relationship. So we end up not recognizing that it's toxic. We kind of stumble into it again. So I feel really, really bad for you. And I know it's tough. And I know that here's the other thing. I can recognize your question because I asked that same question and I asked it for a long time. I think I spent more than a year, year and a half, 2 years on that question. What can I do to make this relationship healthy? What can I do to make my partner healthy and change? What can I do to save the connection I have with this person? Because I like the good times. They're good, really good. But the bad times, sheesh, they're awful. You know, horrible. I'm not a person when it's bad. They're so insulting. It's just horrible. So I wanted to save the relationship. I kept thinking we could just get more good times and less bad times. We could survive it. But what I didn't understand was all of it, that the good times was the manipulation to keep me in the relationship because the person was who they are at their worst. That's really who they are. This is not a broken person who's not living up to their potential. This is a person who's cruel and selfish and doesn't see or care about you. That, unfortunately, is the truth that I couldn't see for a very, very long time. And it took me kind of waking up and realizing that was the real person, not the person I hoped for, but who I was actually living with on a day in and day out basis. Now, thank you so much, Jesse, for that. I appreciate that. I know I hate telling you that, but here's why you're focusing on getting them to change. If they can change, you would find safety again. Your life would get better again. You'd feel like you could kind of breathe and things would get onto a nice, place. And the problem is you have to find the safety in you, not in the relationship. It's not going to happen in this relationship. Now, I'm safe now. I live with my son. I have a great relationship with all of my sons who are adults. I have great friends, and everybody in my life lets me be me. I'm safe because I have selectively created a world that allows me safety. But a toxic relationship is never going to leave you feeling safe. Religion can force you to stay in an unhealthy relationship. Absolutely, Kamish, that was true for me too. I had grown up in a conservative Christian background that said that marriage was the kind of the highest state for an adult person. They should be in a marriage, and then it emphasized this, that women's jobs were to be the role to kind of like be the integrity or the spiritual health of the partner. That we actually helped our partner get closer to God by our faithfulness and our devotion. So, when you put that in on top of already, like, you don't want to be a failure, you can't believe you made this choice of picking a wrong person, you're scared because they're threatening you, all the bad things that are going to happen if you leave, and then you have your faith who says that you as a godly woman need to stay, and that your husband's salvation is kind of based upon your faithfulness. And you got pastors who then kind of come in and say a whole bunch of other stuff that, emphasize that maybe the problem is you because toxic people are really good at flipping the script and making you out to look bad. Like, well, she's the one that starts the fight and she picks on me when I get home, and we're not having enough intimacy, all this stuff. It just gets really, really toxic, really toxic. So yes, I'm back to reading your questions. I know that was a long ass answer to why is my partner not changing, and should I hope for my partner changing? My heart feels with you very, very much. Yeah, I do have a free survey called "Am I the Narcissist?" Toxic people love to make us out being the problem. Here's one of the ways mine did, and it was a really subtle thing. It was a way he kind of was chipping away at my identity. It was actually a projection of his. They do that a lot. They'll project something about themselves onto you. So mine had this thing about clothing. He even told me when he met me that he wouldn't allow me to do his laundry. Now I thought, this is silly. I'd been married before, raised a family of 5. I know how to do laundry. So I didn't let him take laundry from me. I didn't. Why would I fight over that? I don't know. Maybe he was being very sophisticated and getting me to do that. But anyway, he would show me the clothes and tell me the history of the clothes. I mean, he was really proud of his clothes. He even told me, "Don't you ruin my clothes." So when we had come to pack, when we went away for the trip, he would say to me, "You know how you are with your shoes and clothes." What? I'm a person who for years only had 4 pairs of shoes. I rarely bought clothing. I hate clothes shopping. I've never been a big clothes hound. It's just not my thing. Most of my childhood, I lived very, very poor and had to pay for my own clothes for the most part, unless it was Christmas or birthday. So I don't own a lot of clothing. But he would say that every single time we get ready to pack. You know how much you need to pack. You know how you have to pack everything in the kitchen sink. What he was doing was he thought it would hurt my feelings. It would make me out to be one of these women who can't leave without 10 bags, which again, that's exaggeration. That's not even true about women. Again, see what I'm saying? We attribute things to women that aren't necessarily true. And then when it is true, we fail to spot it as a problem. So he was kind of characterizing me that way, trying to hurt me as a way to pick at me. So they'll do that. They'll attribute some false attribution to you that's hurtful, that makes you feel really bad and kind of degrades and erodes your self-confidence. I knew what he was doing, and I didn't bite. It didn't bother me because I knew he was full of shit. And I knew he was trying to hurt me, so I just didn't let it bother me. There was other things that he could have hurt me around, but talking to me about clothing, that's not one of them. Maybe it would have hurt him, but it wasn't going to hurt me. Am I Enneagram 9? Actually, I don't think I am. I'll have to look that up. Kamish, I have looked into it before. I think I'm a 3. I'm formerly a 2, so I have, I think, a wing of a 2, but I think I'm a 3. You have to let me know if you think that makes sense or not. So Nadi asks, in my opinion, what do male survivors need in addition to specifically to heal? What kind of resources and information? I think that's a great question for all of you. In fact, I agree with you, Hendershot. I think misogyny hurts everybody. It hurts men and women, and so does patriarchy. It hurts everybody. That's why I think that we need to really do away with it and see each other clearly. Now, I know it's going to be hard because anybody who's got entitlement and privilege, you never want to give it up. I have it as a white woman living in America, and I don't know what it feels like to be a woman, POC in another country. I have no idea what that's like. Would I like to give up my privileges for that? Probably no, not really. So for us to ask men to give up their privilege of having power, of having authority, or just knowing that when they walk into the room, people see them and defer to them. When a woman walks into the room, we don't defer. We aren't deferred to. If anything, if we're too strong, we're seen as negative, that we already feel like we have to couch how we come in and present ourselves because we're already at a disadvantage. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's a lot to give up, and I'm not for sure I don't know how to do that. That's one of my big questions, how to do that. Healthy 9s look like 3s. Oh, that's interesting. Only I know my core motivations and fears. I'll have to again look that up, what the core motivations, fears are. So our WD channel says, my mother filed for divorce when I was 14. Then she started an affairs and accusing my narcissistic dad of doing it. She used adultery as a way to justify the divorce. Yeah, it's bizarre how they change the narrative, and it sounds plausible unless you know the truth. And then when you actually know the truth, you're like, that's bizarre. I mean, it doesn't even, if you look at the timeline doesn't even add up, doesn't make sense. Yeah, so Eshin said it really damaged me. Having a toxic relationship gave me the illusion of true love. I think that's one of the cruelest things, and I'd love to know if you guys all agree, is that when you meet that person in love bombing, and I felt the same, Eshin, honestly. I thought I had met the perfect guy, and I was never a believer in soulmates, and I thought I met the soulmate. And there's part of me at times when I think back to that person I initially met that I miss him, but I now know he never existed. In fact, I found, to show you how much that was a facade, my ex had cliff notes on women. I found them I actually found them. He had the name of the woman, the size of her family, who was in her family, what she did for a job, and the things that were important to her. And he would refer to it to kind of couch the facade he needed to create in order to meet that person. I mean, there was nothing real. So when he told me that he loved classical music and he was a devout Christian and really religious and all those things, that wasn't true. That's what he knew I needed to hear. He even told me at one point that he pastored a Hispanic church, a small, like, I'll never know if that's true or not. My guess is that it's not true. He just told it to me to make me feel impressed and to think he's more all that. Because I have since seen that other people do that. I had a few people, like, for example, years ago, I had a client who told me that a relative of theirs was a surgeon, that they had to work around this person's schedule because they had such a demanding, grueling schedule. I later found out the truth was this person worked as a scrub person in the operating room. This person never had that. He wasn't even a doctor. This person was a tech support in an OR, but they flipped it and said, no, this person was a surgeon. So you'll see that. You'll see this wild exaggeration of things that are not true as a way to sort of make them more appealing about who they are, and so that you think, oh, I really met somebody fantastic. So I think that it is really harmful to our sense of illusion of true love. But here's the thing. This is what I want to say to all of us. I do believe there is great love, really wonderful, great love. And it's based on us supporting each other, allowing each other to be ourselves, bringing out the best of each other. I think it's very, very possible to find somebody like that. Nobody will ever sacrifice all of themselves for you, but you can find people where you appreciate their differences because it makes you more for knowing that and valuing that, and they do the same for you. That there's a reciprocity, a mutuality, an equity to the relationship. I think that's what real love looks like. So somebody said, a therapist tells you not to talk about your traumatic event. Ooh, I don't think that's a good therapist. If somebody shut you, now, I have a problem with therapists say that you have to talk about your traumatic event. That's not helpful. But they shouldn't shut you down when you talk about your traumatic event. Did they say why? Did they say why they really urged you to not talk about the traumatic event? Yeah, it's interesting. So there's a question that came in. I have symptoms of NPD according to my therapist. Do you have advice? So what kind of advice are you looking for, Kiwi? Are you like wanting to know what to do next? If it's true, and you could always just go to the DSM-5 and ask, see if you fit 5 out of the 9 criteria, which some of them are going to be hard to, like, you can ask, do I typically lie? If you do or you're not. Do you struggle to care about other people's feelings and show up for them? That may be a harder one to assess for yourself. Do you end up thinking you're better than other people? That one you probably know, like, yeah, I think I am better than most people. And I do have that survey. It's linked in my Am I the Narcissist? You can take it. I actually had a narcissist take it, and he scored narcissistic. So I don't have a big sample to say for sure it will tell you that you're a narcissist, but it's pretty accurate. There's another assessment out there. I have to look for it. That's based on research, and it's by a very reputable clinician that you can take that would help you know, and has good questions. So that's another way to kind of get at it too. Oh, thank you so much, Heather, for the gift. I appreciate that. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't help the knowing or not knowing doesn't help the survivor. It really doesn't. Yeah, so Muriel, you feel shut. So Muriel, this is happening to you. You feel shut down. Ugh. And you need to know what to do by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Why did she say it? What can you give me in a brief nutshell? Do you feel comfortable saying enough of like what was happening in that appointment that this person just brought it up? Or was it just their view that victims shouldn't talk about trauma? I strongly disagree. Yeah, that's a great question. What's the best treatment for a narcissist? I was just doing research on it just recently. So believe it or not, psychotherapy, talk therapy is very effective. DBT can be, So does EMDR, maybe. I wouldn't necessarily recommend EMDR unless there's trauma. Not all narcissists have trauma pasts. You want something that helps them get into their emotions. A good treatment form is by Richard Schwartz, called Family Systems Therapy or something. Richard Schwartz. I'm sure on the name. I'm not for sure on the name of the therapy. It talks about parts of ourselves that are in conflict. So it gets you into an observing mode to kind of understand your motives. It also teaches you better regulation by talking to those various parts. So you might want to seek that out. Yes, thank you. ISF, Internal Family Systems. That's what it is. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, check out Richard Schwartz's work, IFS. Sorry, my seat is really uncomfortable today. I don't know why. That's why I keep moving. So you'd really like to hear what Dr. Romney has to say about it. Maybe her YouTube would really be helpful. What is it, Kate, that they're asking about? I'm right now in Dr. Romney's certification for narcissistic abuse. I'm nearly halfway through it. So it's been fascinating. I really appreciate the information. It's very, very good information. So that's happening right now. She's released a 40-hour certification program for clinicians to become certified narcissistic abuse coaches or clinicians or treaters. I don't know what word she uses, but it's very, very good. I heard not to talk about it because it puts you back in the mentality. It lowers the vibrations and re-depresses you. I feel like whatever we don't process, we are doomed to repeat. That's just a rule of thumb in psychology. If you push it away, push it back under the rug, then it will pop up somewhere else on something else. So I don't agree with that philosophy. I don't think it lowers and what you're also doing is you're implying to yourself that it is so powerful that you can't touch it, that you empower it by avoiding it. I think the best way to get things out is to bring it to the light, but it takes time. I have trauma, very significant trauma. I've worked with patients with a lot of trauma. It takes a lot of time. It takes safety. It takes feeling like super accepted in this treatment relationship. And it takes you coming to a place where you feel like you have enough internal resources to look at it. Here's the problem with trauma. We're finding out that it's not coded the same way as memories. So when it comes back up, it feels like emotionally it's happening at that moment, which is why it's so dysregulating. It feels very overwhelming. It takes a good clinician to create the safe space for you to be able to know that you can stay safe and talk about it, that there is a separation of it's a memory, not what really actually happened. But I don't say avoid it. Now, there is a problem when clinicians push for it, though. It should be at the timing of the patients, not the timing of the therapist. So if you have somebody who says, well, the only way to get better is you got to go back into the past or whatever happened and talk about it. No, I don't agree with them. You need to wait until you're ready to talk about it, not when they're ready to talk about it. So, yeah, Mariel, I think that for you, your situation is that one in which I would really challenge that therapist tomorrow, ask what their thinking is about it, let them know that it's created an intense level of unsafety for you, and then I would reassess based upon how that interview went. View it like an interview. View it like you're assessing their qualifications to continue to be your therapist. And then based upon how that appointment goes, I would then decide whether or not I'd see this person or not. I had it happen to me. I saw a clinician for over a year, and I don't know what happened. Somehow she got triggered by my issues, I guess, and she really did a big breach in the treatment. I did circle back and confront her. She didn't own any of it, and I never came back to see her again. I terminated treatment with her right away. I saw it as a treatment failure. So listen to yourself and how this person feels. And if it doesn't feel safe, you don't feel accepted, you don't feel like you can come in and show up as yourself, I wouldn't stay. I really wouldn't. Yeah, so Nadi just mentioned other retreats. I'm having 2 new retreats this fall. Right now, we're coming up on Rising Strong, which is the next month. We do have 2 spaces left. They're at a 20% discount. You have to sign up now because we're closing the ability to join if you're interested. for more information, see the link in my bio on that. But then the fall, we're going to be launching one for men called Unleash Your Potential, and a one for women called Strong and Unstoppable. So I'm super excited about it. So if you're interested, it's going to be in Orlando, Florida for both. Men's is going to be the weekend of September 19th through the 22nd, and women's is going to be the weekend of October 3rd through the 6th. And there'll be more details coming out on this on our website, Wellness Recovery Retreats, soon. It's not there yet, but we're working on it right now. I got about 10 more minutes before I have to head out. So what other questions do you guys have for me today? I love that you're talking to each other. That's really, really awesome. Yeah, RWD is saying some therapists get in trouble. They do illegal, unethical things. Absolutely. There are very unhealthy questions. So, La Bamba, you asked a question. I didn't see it. You're asking me to scroll up. I wonder how far I'll have to scroll up. Looks pretty far. Is there any way that you'd mind typing that back in? Because I've now gone, 50 messages and I'm still not seeing it. And I'm afraid I'm going to skim right over top of it. I'm sorry that I didn't see it. I'm on 3 platforms. I don't know if you know that. So it gets a little crazy around here. My narcissist is becoming bored. Yeah, they do get bored. They get very restless. They don't have a lot of internal structures to kind of organize their life, their focus, their goals. So restlessness is a big problem. Boredom is a big problem. So if divorce is not an option, what are some ways to make marriage with a narcissist more pleasant? That is a big challenge. Can my mods pin questions? I don't know if they can or not. Yeah, Labama, I'm hoping you'll write it again. I'm watching for it. Yeah. Oh, you asked it again, and I still didn't see it. Where is it? Oh, can I scroll up and look up my questions? I see that one. I don't see the other question. Yeah, I don't. Kate's saying she doesn't see it either. Nobody's finding it, La Bamba, so we can't pin it. We can't find it. You have to, unfortunately, I'm sorry, have to re-ask it. It's tough. Kamish, I think the issue to be able to survive a relationship with a narcissist is to become, oh, you're saying you're bored with him because you see a little boy. Yeah, that's kind of what happens because they're emotionally immature. Yeah. How do you survive that? It becomes, you have to really put in things that you need in the relationship. You have to seek it out. You're not going to get reciprocity. You're not going to get a whole lot of deep intimacy. So those are the things you're going to have to build in with other relationships or build in through a separate life for yourself that still maintains integrity, that you feel like you can, feel like you can live with yourself. Can I talk about piedra gris? You mean gray rock? Oh, good thing I know Spanish. Gray rocking, it used to be what we'd recommend. It's kind of a form of emotional detachment. So when the narcissistic person attempts to sort of hook you, make you upset, triggered, they then will, throw out this really hot button, and it's a setup. You recognize it's a setup. So gray rock or piedra gris is when you just avoid it. You step over it by saying something kind of non-committal, or can't really incite a debate. Like they say, well, you always do that. Like, take it this, for instance, I gave about mine saying about me having to pack heavy, that I couldn't resist having a lot of clothes. A gray rock response would have been like, oh, yeah, yep, you know me. That's what I actually said. Yep, you know me. I just I didn't bite. I didn't care. I went with it. Yeah, you want to say that, whatever. You can say that. You say, oh, really? Or I don't know. Or, huh, something just nonchalant that's not engaging, not antagonistic. The challenging part is inside we're feeling really shook up and upset because they're trying to upset us and they've done it. But you have to react in a way which it doesn't act out of that place. It doesn't feed it. So La Bamba, I'm still watching for your question. Did you ask? Oh, how do you help her understand to deal with the feelings of unloved? Who is feeling unloved? Is it Your partner is feeling unloved. Your daughter is feeling unloved. Who's feeling unloved? Your daughter. How old is she? And while you're answering that, my health is better. For those of you who may not know, I got super sick on Christmas Day. Super sick. I actually had diverticulitis. I never had it before in my life. Sent me to the ER. I couldn't even lay down or roll over. I was in so much pain, so much pain. So they put me on heavy duty antibiotics for 10 days. Wow. It was hard. It was bad, but I'm doing really well. So I'm back to normal, thank goodness. All right, you have 50-50 custody, and she's 9 years old, and she has a narcissistic mother. The best thing I'm going to tell you is don't get thrown by the feedback that she says that you don't love her. Chances are it's coming from mom, and it's a way to make you feel bad. But instead, show her that you love her. Like, stay in touch with what's happening in her school. Show up to those events, her athletic events, to her school events. Even when mom doesn't always share it with you, get a copy from the school and show up. Care about what's going on in her life. Do things that show her that you're important, that she's important to you, that you see her, and that you value what's happening for her. If you just consistently stay present and emotionally available, she will over time see how much you love her. So those are the things that I would focus on. You're not going to change her perspective. All you're going to do is going to get into a he said, she said thing. And chances are, here's the unfortunate rule with parents and parenting with a toxic parent. The healthiest parent is the one who gets the worst crud. The healthiest parents ends up is the ones that the kids take all their upsetness out on because they know that you're safer. So hold on. The fact that she's expressing it with you means she probably can express this with mom, that you're the safer parent. That's why she can show up and be that way with you. So I know it's kind of a back-ended compliment, but it's one way to really address this is just you be a loving dad. Just really be the best loving parent that you can possibly be. Yeah, I'm doing a lot better. Thank you guys for that. I really appreciate that. So, hey, I need to wrap this up. This has been awesome. You guys know I always go live roughly around 4 p.m. I finally figured out how to do it in one location for both Facebook and YouTube, so that's awesome. And I really love hanging out with you guys. Love the questions. Check out in TikTok, I have a shop. And my items really work best together. I found out that you can't list duplicate items in a package when they're individual items, so I had to change the way I was offering things. So I apologize that you're not going to be able to find the Breaking Free book set, but you will find now that this First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist is there. This is a workbook helping you with cognitive dissonance, figure out the next best step in your relationship, what's real in your relationship. Then Surviving to Thriving. This is something I wrote with Lisa Sunny. This is what you need after you leave. It's actually a dense workbook helping you understand why you feel guilty, why it's hard to let go of their potential, why you're struggling with the confusion of what's real. So it kind of walks you through the 6 obstacles. And of course, if you just feel like, hey, I want to read a good story, but I also want to know that I'm not alone, that it happens to other people, check out Love You More. Love You More is my memoir. It's actually what happened to me. And I wrote it like a true crime novel. So you're kind of carried along with it's a story. It's not so much, doesn't tell you a whole lot about what's happening. It describes what's happening in the back. The epilogue, I sort of deconstruct from my experience what I now know happened in that relationship. But you know, as much as I know, that when you're in it, you can't see it. You're just like literally trying to hang on. Hey, I love you guys too. Someone said, love your channel. I'm glad I'm feeling better. Yeah, me too. I'm so glad that I'm here. Yes, Lisa Sunny is the other author of that book, Surviving to Thriving. So you can get it, and it's autographed by me. And I don't have her autograph in it, but I have autographed it. And they're workbooks. The 2 smaller ones are workbooks. Lots and lots of stuff. All right, you guys, I'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about the highs and lows of relationships, why they're up and down, why they keep us on a roller coaster. What is all that about? So come back next week and we'll be talking about that. And I'll see you then, you guys. You take care. Bye-bye.